Leffler. I am the armchair attorney. I've been a lawyer since 2010. I've practiced in Illinois. I do mostly employment contracts and business-to-business contracts, but I've been in supply chain for a very long time. Really happy to be here.
Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle with My Care Portal. Been there about a year or so, and before that I was a broker for about 8 years. So,
My name is Dale Prax, and I'm the CEO and founder of Freight Validate, an identity and compliance verification system for brokers, carriers, any accredited FMCSA regulated entity. I'm also a freight broker, been one for about 32 years, been an owner operator before during the truck, did the whole 9 yards, so I think that I got a little bit of experience that brings us into vetting carriers properly. So that's what I do.
Steve.
My name is Steve Thelma. I'm the owner of Police Logistics, carrier-based asset company in Charleston, South Carolina. And before that, I worked for PepsiCo for 25 years, running fleet departments, sales warehouses. So a lot of experience in the shipping world and in compliance with and safety as well.
And I'm Jeff Dickinson. I started in the business in 1988. In my 44th year, I love exactly what I do today. I built a lot of complex logistics operations, started up the first 4-year operation in the Ford Motor Company's history. I also managed well over $100 million worth of transportation spend from Panasonic to North America, in Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. So thank you for coming today. We're going to get into it. Can you start the video, please?
Today, Commercial Vehicle Inspector Sergeant Jessica Bluegill and Commercial Vehicle Inspector Eric Sunday will demonstrate and discuss the most thorough way to conduct your pre-trip inspection. A thorough pre-trip inspection not only helps reduce vehicle violations during a roadside inspection, but more importantly, it helps protect.
So the first thing you want to look at is pull the oil, and you want to dipstick, make sure you got plenty of oil in the engine. Good. Also, look over.
There we go. So in this session, in part one, we're going to talk about the CDL license requirements. There we go. CDL license requirements, FMCSA, 49 CFR, and pre and post inspections. So let's talk about the CDL license requirements. Anybody out there know what the number one test requirement is for CDL? License, I know a lot of you.
Have a pulse.
The first part of the test is the pre-check inspection. It's there for a specific reason. It's actually mandated by 49 CFR FMCSA 392.7, which tells the driver that before you go and move that freight or doing shipping on the shipper, even if you're pulling it from the yard, that you need to do at least a 15 to 20 minute inspection on your vehicle. Dale, what are your thoughts about that? I know we talk about it a lot of times with that pre-check and post-check inspections.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most important thing that we can do. That 30 minutes you spend doing that pre-trip or post-trip inspection, we hear a lot of times, well, I don't get paid for that, I get paid by the mile. Well, that 30 or 40 minutes could save you hours, days, months when your verdict comes out because you didn't check the truck. So I think it's really important that, and let's be really honest with you, it's in law.
Right.
If you're not following the law, you're not going to do it right in the first place, then, what are you been in this business for?
Correct. And, when that happens, the driver's putting himself at risk. We're going to get into brand image, reputation, later on, what happens when fatality happens when your company gets tagged on that, even though you're indirectly, involved in it, but your brand's out there, it's on the truck, you get mentioned. Right?
Yeah, if I could add something, I think this moment is so important. We're talking about safely delivering freight on time and on campus. And there's no one in this room. There's not enough people here. If you go outside right now, 21.6% of all commercial vehicles on the road right now, 1 in 5, is unsafe at any speed. We want to talk about relationships. We want to talk about money and rates. We don't talk about safety. We don't talk about maintenance because no one cares about it. This is the most important session that's happening here because your families are on the road. Your friends are on the road. Your customers need you to get things safely delivered on time and undamaged. It was never easy to do this. It's not easy to do it today. To get a CDL, in some cases, it's 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks. And you can operate an 80,000-pound machine. Why are we here? We want to help you understand what is coming down the road. Hundreds of millions of dollars of liability if you don't do this right. Why are we talking about pre and post-trip inspections? The legally mandated inspection you're supposed to do every single time you touch that truck. Every time. No one does it. That is why 1 in 5 commercial vehicles are unsafe at any speed. If I was a retailer selling milk, and I said, I have 5 gallons of milk for you to buy, one of them is unsafe, you would say, man, that sounds like a really bad milk. I would prefer not to buy milk from you. You don't get that choice. The supply chain we have right now is what we designed back in 1980 after deregulation. So we're going to talk about a lot of different elements of this, but this moment that I see in front of me, there are many people here who actually do care about safely delivering freight on time and undamaged with well-maintained assets. There's a lot of people who want to schmooze, and I applaud them. They should do that. That's important. That's what these things are about. But this is about safety and compliance, and there is no one here because in our industry, safety and maintenance compete for who is least important. They're the ones who are least important. Operations and sales get support, safety, and maintenance get part. And that is what we see happen when the market goes bad. International Road Check, I sorry for the little bit of a spiel.
Breach.
When International Road Check happens, we know months in advance when it's going to happen. The results came out just a couple weeks ago. 23% of all vehicles that were inspected during the Blitz failed. And what were the most common things that failed during International Road Check? Brakes, lights, tires, BLTs. They are delicious to eat. They are horrifying on your commercial vehicles. What do brakes, lights, and tires do? They help you stop. Those are not maintained properly. So I just wanted to briefly segue about what we see in our industry. We are the problem. You don't want to have the nuclear verdicts. Fix the stuff at home. Get people to be interested in this. I was expecting maybe a few more people to attend. And as I look out, I hope more come in. But this is a big thing. This is what makes everything work. If we don't maintain it, you ought not to have it.
I think they may have heard you out there.
I think
Another thing, sometimes go really quick, I just want to do a quick
Yeah.
point to logistics now. They're recording this, so that people that didn't miss this need to watch it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, I was just gonna say, pop into a truck stop, and in the morning when they're getting started, see, it's crazy, like, one of the areas where we park one of our trucks, there's 120 other trucks in the parking lot. And I'm yelling and screaming at people all the time, because literally, there's people get out of the car, jump in that truck, typically they'll check their lights, right? Because that's the one thing that's gonna get them pulled over pretty quick. But they're in and out of there in like 5 minutes, less than that. It's sad. It's extremely sad. And anybody that's driving a truck needs to look themselves in the mirror, go look at their family in their bedrooms, and realize that the decision they're making right there to not inspect that truck can affect your kid's life, anybody's family's life. It kills people.
Yeah. Danielle, how about yourself? What do you thought?
Well, definitely, and even, I have 3 kids and driving down the road, whenever you're passing by, when you just, especially knowing the percentage rates, as a broker, whenever I knew how, there are all service rates for this, and I knew, I know that company, and I know they have bad safety. I'm driving down the road, and I'm right next to one of their trucks, I'm like, let's speed as fast as we can around this guy and get away,
That's what we would call
So,
it, right?
yeah, get away.
Fast as possible.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like that.
But there's another thing too, 49 CFR 396.1, which is the DVIR, driver vehicle inspection record. We're gonna get into that later, but since Matt brought all those things up, really good points. A lot of times drivers either say it's not my responsibility, or I don't get paid to do this. What does that tell you out there? The ones those that, want to learn more, that they're irresponsible, that they don't care for their families, they don't care for their fellow American on the roads, that they'll take the risk. And in this economy, one of my really good friends said, the carriers out there are one breakdown away from bankruptcy. They are pushing their PMs, their pre-trip inspections, because one, they feel that they're going to spend too much time, it's going to take away from the HOS hours of service. They want to get on the road and they've got to pass it up, especially if they're doing a drop and hook at an enterprise shipper, and let the next driver take up the slack, which is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And to your point too, when you're on the road and you have your family there, and that guy didn't do a pre-check inspection, and you get into forensics crash investigations as well, they'll look at that and they'll know if that's a forgery on that, because there's no way that belts will show the 300-mile run, especially leaving a shipper, and now you kill the family of four. I don't think you would want that on the shoulders whatsoever. That's why this thing is one of the most important topics of today.
Imagine if an airline pilot had that same philosophy. I don't have time, I don't get paid for this. Now I got an airplane with 400 people dead because of this guy that had that attitude. Right. It's so different in trucks, man. You have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of the people on the highway next to you. Right. So, I mean, if you just thought of it like that, would an airline pilot let this go?
No, and I faced that. I think I told you, right?
Newark.
So when I flew out of Newark 2 days ago, the pilot comes out and he's walking around his plane, he's checking out the tires, he's going down the lanes, he's looking at the fuel option and all that, and he's out there for a few minutes. Next thing I know, I'm watching him. He throws his arms out, shakes his head, and starts walking. About 2 minutes later, there's a mechanical problem, we've got to change planes. To your point, 2.5 hour delay. To save our lives possibly, because there could have been a really bad mechanical issue. I don't know what that was. But the possibilities were there. I didn't want to be on that plane, so I'm glad that they didn't fix that plane, they got another plane in. So.
Let me give you an example of how it used to be. Because a lot of people don't really understand where we came from. And you can't know where you are unless you know where you've been. You don't know where you're going unless you know where you are currently. The old days, before deregulation in 1980, 60 to 70% of all truck drivers were unionized, teamsters. You inspected that truck and you saw there was a safety issue. You wrote it up, and you get to sit back. You're still paid, you're still being paid, but you're not touching the truck. And you don't touch the truck until the mechanic fixes it, signs off on it, and then you can go back in the truck. And if the dispatcher or your boss said, get back in the truck and drive, you go to your union rep and say, I'm not doing that. And the union steward would give you a call and you have a grievance, because that is how the industry was built. Now, fast forward 40 some odd years, the vast majority of freight moves with trucking companies with less than 6 pieces of power. The getting an authority is simple. Getting a CDL is simple. It is a middle. It is designed to produce this result. When I gave the number of 21.6%, that is not an aberration. That is how it has always been for the last few decades. Because this is what happens when you reduce the cost of moving things. And what you see happen and what's unfolding now is somebody looks at the truck and they know, if I write this up, I will be punished by my boss. I will be in trouble if I do this. I'm not going to do it. Or the culture of the company is such, if you write this up, you will end up being punished or fired. You can't refuse to drive your truck. You lose your job. In the world of owner-operators, and that's business, I appreciate the small business owners who are hustling out there to have a truck, move freight, provide for their families. They are not trained to do this. 3 weeks will not make you a professional truck driver. I'm sorry. Right. There was a time when you could do this job. Average compensation for a truck driver back in 1980, $48,000 a year. Adjust that for inflation, $110,000, $120,000. It's a different world that we live in now. And this is what happened when you did this. When this deregulation took place, this was the natural intended consequence. And you look at this today, look at the tires. There's an inside tire there, one is for traction and one is for racing. This is what we see every day on America's highways. Maybe you don't kill someone today, maybe you don't kill someone tomorrow, but you build a culture around the idea that there is no point in doing it correctly. There's no value in doing it correctly. The idea of not getting paid for doing the inspection. You do a tug test. Maybe you high hook the fifth wheel, it's a bummer, you can fix it, maybe you lose a trailer. But this is why our insurance rates are so astronomically high. This is why the driver insurance is so high at the big motor carriers. And ultimately, this is the supply chain that we want. Because as American consumers, we don't want to spend the money to have a safe and effective American fleet. We don't want to do it, it's too hard. And we did everything we could to destroy the unionized truckers. We have been at war with individual truckers since 1980. And it's not getting better. And again, I just look at this, the topic of safety and compliance, and I see the amount of people that are here that just, it indicates, this is what we just, listen.
I'd like to add to that, why I think that the Broker Carriers Summit is probably the most important event to attend is because there are brokers and carriers talking to each other. A lot of times this conversation happens at OIW Match, which is just carriers around, right? But that causes the brokers not to understand what they're going through. How many brokers say, if you're late, I'm gonna fine you $500. The guy says, my tire's broken. This is wrong. During my pre-trip, I found this. Well, you better be there on time. And what kind of message are we sending out? And that's why I think these conferences, Broker Carriers Summit, is so important. So we talk to each other and say, hey, I get that there's a safety issue, but you have to understand too, the reason I'm late is because of safety issue. Do you want to have your brand associated with me killing somebody?
Well, it's profit over safety.
Right, profit over
That's the problem. And I started in the 1980, right before the regulation, when the drivers respected their job. They had uniforms. Clean shape, their cabs were clean. They wore cabs. You don't see that today. You don't see that at all. It's like that's a huge missing part of it. Because when I was managing on the shipper side, all my carriers, all my drivers had to look respectful. Why? Because they represented me, they represented the company that I worked for, and it was the brand, it was the image, it was the reputation of being a good service provider, even though I was working for a company, but it represented that brand. And that's very important. That's something that's really missed out. Steve, what do you think?
No, I mean, this picture right here just speaks about more, right? I mean, even if that truck doesn't kill somebody from the standpoint of the truck manufacturer, everyone say, right? The tire falls off. You see it all, drive up down the highways all day long. You see rubber up. That happens in front of somebody. Now that person has swerved, maybe that rubber flies to the windshield, whatever. It takes 20 minutes to save a life. And they do it every day. When I was with the big blue soda company, I would see that when drivers going in there and half-assed. So I started making a competition. I would hide stickers somewhere on a touch point. They found that, they come to me, they might get an extra day off, they might get an extra vacation day, whatever. It was incentive. You have to incentivize people to do it. Just expecting them to do it because it's the law. It's what they signed on for when they got their CDL. They don't do it. But yet you have a freaking koozie, or a tumbler, or a free pen, or a hat. Oh shit, they're gonna take 20 minutes a day. They were on the clock. They were getting paid to do it. Like their clock started when they got there. So they can't even use the scenario, they're not getting paid for it. But you have to incentivize them to go out there and do that. But yeah, they were willing to jump in that truck and go drive.
I love the incentive. A lot of motor carriers will give bonuses to a driver who gets a clean inspection, a roadside inspection, $150 for getting a clean inspection. That picture I got from Reddit, you go to the trucker subreddit, you will see truckers saying, what should I do? My boss has told me I have to run. You're a professional driver. This is your CDL. Usually, if you see this and you say, I'm not going to run, they will fire you. But if you get caught with that, you're just as much trouble because that's your record, that's your CDL. It's mind-boggling what you see on the roads every single day.
Well, it's funny, you actually look at corporate, like, where they do inspections, like we'll do a dispatch, right? 90% of the time, they don't even give them enough time in the yard in the morning to do it, right? They'll say 10 minutes in the yard, and then you get blah, 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 right? Literally, they'll break it down by the day, how long pre and post trip. It doesn't even give them time to do it. So your point, like, companies, even larger companies, right? If something happens, they're too pissed. And they have to start shelling out money, but they're not even giving their employees the amount of time to do it right.
Sorry. So for me, whenever I was a broker, honestly, on our risk assessment, we were, are you, satisfactory, conditional, unsatisfactory? That's what we looked at. And to the point, whenever I had a driver call me saying, oh, this is happening. Oh, man, like he's falling off my load. And unfortunately, there are the bad actors out there that are sending you the same picture saw yesterday from another driver. They're like, oh, this same truck and tire situation. Like that, you know, I think the biggest thing is if that is a situation that's happening, have that communication, be truthful, and being upfront about it to a broker. And that's really where all that heat of, oh, my shit's coming off the load, I'm gonna freight guard you, and all these things can go away if you handle it correctly. It is sad that there's bad actors out there that abuse that. But I think having that relationship with your broker and relationship with your dispatcher, all those things you need, that's important, and that's where this whole thing will play out. Because you pay, I'm doing the right thing, I'm looking to say.
I think that the drivers need to remember too, that they're the captain of that ship. It's not the owner company's the captain of that ship, they're the captain of the ship, they set the CEO those way. I think that FMCSA needs to enforcing these things, the driver, when the carrier says, go ahead, God, there's a law called coercion, but nobody enforces that. It's a $30,000 fine for every other offense, but who's enforcing it? And that becomes an issue.
So why isn't it being enforced?
I can jump in. So I spoke with an FMCSA regular at IANA's business meeting a couple months ago, and I said to them, all right, look at the numbers, 21.6% national average service rate. Is this good? Like, is the FMCSA's position that 20% of all commercial vehicles are unsafe? They said, look, we believe that fatalities need to go away, and the fatalities are caused by bad drivers and hour of service and drug and alcohol. It's not the truck, it's not the trailer, it's not the maintenance. They do not have the resources to do this. And because the barrier to entry is so small, let me just give you a little quick history lesson. 1980 Motor Carrier Act passes, and they established the minimum insurance that an over-the-road motor carrier must have. Minimum insurance is $750,000. I know there's some attorneys in this room. I love to see attorneys when they want to talk about this industry. If you're in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks, that $750,000 is gone. It is expensive to keep somebody alive after a catastrophic accident. They did not tie the $750,000 to inflation. Had they done that, it'd be more like $5 million of liability insurance. If you were to force every motor carrier right now to have that insurance, many of them would go out of business like that. It would be instantaneous. They tried to change this. There was an act in Congress called the Fair Compensation for Truck Crash Victims Act. Great name, very catchy. They wanted to raise the rate, and OIDA and the ATA both said no. And if OIDA and the ATA agree on something, it ain't happening. It is not going to happen. So again, we see this as a symptom of the broader cause. And again, deregulation is the most important thing that happened into our business. Brokers 20 years ago moved 6% of all freight. Today it's 20%. Do brokers have any concept of this thing? Some of them do. Some do. Most don't. Most don't care. And most, freight brokers don't have the conversation with their shippers about, hey, listen, we really need to boost what we do on our motor carrier side. We're going to have to raise your rates because insurance is going up, safety is a big concern. That's not a conversation that's happening. So there's just so much that I love to unpack about this thing and help people understand why are we here and why is there absolutely no path to solve. Because to your point, the FMCSA is not getting more money to enforce more things. It's self-reported. It's a difficult business to be in, and it is a dangerous business.
We don't need more regulation. The private sector is going to do it, dude. The enterprise shippers now require $5 million coverage now for drivers. So the private sector is always going to, they require it.
I think that's a great point. So one of the things you mentioned, so a shipper can say, I want to require my motor carrier partners to have higher rates of insurance because the shippers are now seeing that their potential liability.
Absolutely.
They see this. The other trend in force is going to really impact is autonomous trucks. So last year, the FMCSA did a supplemental advance notice of proposed rulemaking, a legal term, about level 4 and level 5 automation. Level 4, remote operator, level 5, remote assistant. If you have autonomous trucks, they must run like airplanes. They cannot have a 20% out of service rate at all. That piece of the business requires you to believe that they are always safe. So I welcome our robot overlords. I will betray the first opportunity that I have. And the middle mile in 10 years will be predominantly autonomous trucks.
No, you're stretching.
So question on autonomous vehicles. Who's going to do the pre-check on that?
That's a great question. So many of me. So I'm going to give you guys some. So why did Cox Automotive, a division of Cox Enterprise, a $22 billion privately held family corporation, buy Dickinson Fleet Services, a mobile maintenance provider? Why? Because they know that it's going to be a mechanic that inspects that vehicle. If you look at Kodiak and Aurora, every single route they run every single day to read the post is done by a mechanic. When I was a vendor in maintenance and repair. I worked with Siva Logistics, pulled owner operators, Siva owned the trailers. Every 10 days, I was paid a .2, 12 minutes to inspect those trailers, brakes, lights, and tires. So we think when it comes to the autonomous vehicles, those inspections will be done by qualified mechanics because that's what's going to have to happen.
Well, what happens when they're at the shipper and they're making the shipment, right? Now they have to go to the local service station to get that fixed. How do they identify like a bad tire or canister, brake canister hanging off?
I look at something like Outpost. So Outpost is a technology-enabled commercial parking solution. They have these giant gates you drive into. It does a full vehicle scan. Gives you tire tread depth, brake line, not yet, and someday. But I think what will happen is there'll be sensors at the shipper's locations or a mobile service truck with a mechanic that'll inspect that vehicle for you.
So then the shipping cost is going to go up.
Absolutely.
Somebody's going to pay for this.
We will spend more money on maintenance and less money on labor. So again, the regulation's entire idea was to reduce the cost of goods for America by $8 billion in 1980, and it did that by making wages go down for drivers. So we're going to save money on driver wages because drivers will not be here, and we're going to spend more on safety and maintenance.
Yeah.
I just want to add too that we invited the FMCSA to come to this event. Ken Riddle, Director of Vetting and Registration is here, but he thought that this event was so important and looking at what we're doing on this panel, that he brought along with him 4 other members of the FMCSA to talk about safety and all those things that he doesn't talk about, safety and drug and alcohol testing, enforcement, all those kind of things. So, as you're, working with each other, get with them because they want to hear from the industry. All they're hearing from now is congressmen. TIA doesn't meet with the congressmen. They're getting their stuff from the top down. Let's get them information from the industry with our insight so they can go to the senator and say, this is what the industry wants. Not what some guy told the senator who doesn't really give a shit because all he cares about is vote. FMCSA really does care, but their hands are kind of tied. So let's untie their hands for them and give them insight from us.
Yeah, and
On the front side.
CSA, if there's no assessments going on, don't go. Even if I have my second one later this afternoon, FMCSA again is #1. Everybody needs to hear right from the horse's mouth on the government level, and both brokers and carriers, this is the first time, as a matter of fact, that the government can address both carriers and brokers at the same time. So, any questions you want to ask, there'll be a Q&A, definitely start rattling off, because that's what he's here for, so he can make it a level ground, so he's clear with what's going on, what they're doing in the future, in the very near future, and it's going to be a great session. Steve, yeah,
No, I mean, they can say no, that's our question. Our truck, we don't have a very small fleet of trucks here, right? And I get passionate, I brought it up on the logistics launch before. We never get pulled in for inspections, never. We run overweight, because I would think we should get pulled in when we pull in, right? We always get the green light. And many conditions do, a lot of states now will not let you go in and do manual ones where you wouldn't request to have that because larger companies have gone in and brought the same truck in for inspection time and time again, so they were getting false green things, so they won't even let you do that. I think there are a lot of carriers and a lot of people that take care of the trucks. Ours go in every 3 months regardless of if they need to do it or not, right? They run for a month and a half or whatever, right? It goes in every 3 months for inspection, or for me. But from the broker side, right, it's like, our trucks run great in their service. We get a broker to look at it, but we don't get enough inspections yet. There's another guy that can have a bunch of inspections. His service can actually be high, like my own service is 0, like what else is. His own service can be higher because he has more inspections. He's greater, he has a better carrier, great job.
Or even as,
So we're going to talk about, Danielle and I are going to talk about that a lot this afternoon, about subjective data and disqualifying carriers, which is just the dumbest thing in the world. If you get disqualified because you don't have enough inspections, don't listen to the person's talking. I mean, that is the dumbest rule in the world. Because subjective data can be manipulated to make a good guy look bad, bad guy look good.
Absolutely.
You have not to, these vetting companies that have started in the last 4 or 5 years that say we're going to use this data to see if you're good or bad, Have you noticed that in the time that they've started, the fraud has grown by 400%?
That's a crazy correlation.
My soapbox.
You know, like our system, for instance, has the no inspection alert. It's not, that does not mean they're, it's just, hey, let's look into this guy. Let's make sure they actually have equipment. Let's make sure they're actually a legit carrier. That's why you take the next step. It's not a red light, green light. Like it's subjective. So let's figure out more information. Ask the right questions. Talk to people.
Carrier managers, go visit your carriers, like you mentioned. Go physically, go visit, go see the assets.
Build relationships.
Yeah, build the fucking relationship.
Build a relationship.
Right. But you
That's how you
know
build your
what?
brand.
To Matt's point, you know, as brokers, as carriers in this room, it's our responsibility. We have to realize that the shipper is paying us to do the job. Part of that job is to protect their brand, their image, their reputation, and their products. First and foremost, safety should be the first thing that's sold to any prospect that's out there, and what it stands for, and why you do it, and what you're trying to do to protect their best interests. Because brokers, let's face it, brokers get a lot of whack, left and right? That profits over service, right? They just want to move it. Doesn't matter what carrier is out there, as long as they can pick up the load and get to the place, that's it. There's so much more that's involved, and safety is the number one thing.
You know, it's interesting that doing a Jeep, somebody's gonna come put a duck on your window or your door or whatever, right? Or if you park wrong in a parking lot, somebody's gonna put a nasty note in your windshield. How many times in a truck, is somebody walk by a truck in a parking lot and sit there and notice like a ball tire or something, maybe just put a note on the windshield. So like the community can do their part as well to help in safety, you know? I mean, I've noticed that I've done a lot more where I'll look at the trucks when I'm looking around, I see something, I'll put a note on the paper, I'll check this, right? Like, wow, but we're more focused on putting ducks on safety here than we are about going around and actually looking, you know, vehicles.
As you guys all see this slide, this is from the International Road Check. I love what you mentioned about your trucks getting inspected every 3 months. Look at Old Dominion, the best motor carrier, most profitable trucking companies that's ever existed. They inspect their vehicles every 3 months. They change the liftgate batteries every single year. If the batteries don't need to be changed, because for them, they want to make sure that they give that customer the promise of safely delivering something on time and years. These are the results. 95.2% of commercial vehicle drivers were okay during International Road Check, up to 48,761 inspections. But 77% of vehicles were, which means 23% bad. And this is what we're driving with every single day next to us. This is what pre-trips are designed to do. A tire doesn't go bald immediately. It happens over time. And you've seen it happening every single week. That's when you bring it to a mechanic every 3 months. That's the cadence you want to do, is to bring a vehicle in for inspection at a minimum twice a year. But realistically, if you're really a trucking company, you ought to be inspecting it every 3 months, because a driver may not understand the braking systems are starting to fail, or the airlines are rubbing together, having a chance where it can't brake. But this should depress and terrify every single one of them, because this is what we lawyers do. When I do your motor carrier, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to ask questions around, hey, I want to see the records of the maintenance on this vehicle. And what I want to find out is what's the pattern and practice of the use. Because I know the driver had a bad day. I know the driver had a bad day. But I really want to get to you, the corporation. I want to really show the jury your inability to do the one thing you're legally required to do, which is to keep your vehicle safe and maintained properly under the FMCSA guidelines. And it is so easy for a lawyer who can understand what this business is like and how you will operate to penetrate and go after it and break it. And your liability insurance, you're running a $5 million policy. If you kill somebody, it's going to be over $5 million. And just because the insurance is maxed out doesn't mean ISO stop coming. Because I'm going to come after your assets. I'm going to come after every single bank account that you have. I'm going to pull the money away. I'll do citations to discover where you have your money. And you will go bankrupt because you can't stop me. And maybe make a new company, and maybe become a chameleon carrier, you can live around. This is the supply chain that we have. This is what we have built over the last 44 years. And people get mad at lawyers. I understand we're villains in most stories, but we are serving a purpose. When we're a plaintiff attorney, we are on a contingent fee basis. What that means is I am paid based on my success, pure commission. If I win, I get 1/3 of that amount of money. So I have every incentive to uncover what you've done wrong and make sure that you pay. Because I would love nothing more than to get in front of the jury and say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, these guys say safety is important to them. But look at their record of inspections. They're at 21.6%, which is the national average. You are toast. You are toast. So this again is a reminder. They knew this inspection was coming months in advance. And yet, 23% of commercial vehicles fail. Because people do not care about safety maintenance. They care about money. They care about getting good rolls. And they want to put this on the back burner. They'll defer the maintenance, like you said. And deferred maintenance means you're going to spend that money again, but more later on when the thing fails.
Well, and what's sad too, Matt, is how many people don't even run.
I'm just
What is that real number? Says about 40.7.
Yeah.
How many drivers take vacation?
Yep.
You're asking, like, I mean,
Yeah, you plan your vacation way in advance, no one there.
Yeah.
It's like-
Trying to find a truck, yeah. Good point.
So what changes the mindset to put a safety first kind of proactive mindset to set on all the trifecta, right? Broker, shipper, carrier. How do we get there?
There's a really interesting, I'm going to give a couple examples of how I think you do it. I think my solution is very messy, it's very expensive, and would make most people uncomfortable. You raise the minimum amount of insurance to $2 to $5 million. That'll push out a substantial amount of motor carriers. And plaintiff counsels and defense counsel would love to see that, because ultimately, we want to make sure that we're insuring for the risk that's on the road. Secondarily, FMCSA should mandate 2 inspections a year. Not the voluntary ones you get pulled over, but an actual certified mechanic inspects your vehicle twice a year. It's more expensive. I know this. And brokers should be held liable for the negligence of motor carriers in certain circumstances.
Right, you just brought up mandating 2 inspections.
Yeah.
The inspection that I get at my mechanic that the FMCSA says I have to do every year, that doesn't even count. I can't even upload that, even though I do it every single December.
That's what you start.
I don't even use it.
So that's a great perspective. So if I'm a broker wanting to understand how a motor carrier behaves, I would ask them for a copy of the last PM done on the truck. The Fed don't need to see that PM is done. The PM is for you to know that your assets are safe. We don't need to have a government looking at every single thing that we do. What we do want to do is make sure our assets are safe at all times. So the inspections twice a year minimum federally mandated, at least you have someone looking at that truck every 6 months, because the drivers are not doing it. They're not doing it. This will be part of my AMA, but I'll be very brief with this. But there's 2 cases you should be following. Global Trans versus U, which is the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, and C.H. Robinson versus Miller, which is the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals case. Those 2 cases came out with different answers. Can a broker be held liable for the negligence of the motor carrier? In the 9th Circuit, yes, you can. If your driver kills somebody, your brokerage is on the line. If in the 7th Circuit, if you kill somebody, the driver, your brokerage is probably not on the line. The U.S. Supreme Court has not weighed in on this issue. But I believe, this is politically divisive, the 9th Circuit is probably right. I think brokers should be held liable, because then it will incentivize them to make sure the motor carriers are safe. That is a very dangerous quote, I understand.
Yeah, I was like, ugh.
You know what? Matt, you're becoming like Bezos, man. I swear to God.
CSA 2. Only 3% of all motor carriers even have a safety rating at all. No, not rated. 3%. 97% don't have a rating. So with the New Energy audit, which is supposed to happen within 12 to 18 months, we're saying go ahead, get your CDL, get your license, go into business, and we'll come back and check you for safety in 12 months. I know you as an attorney have to pass the bar before you practice law, right? But why don't we make sure that somebody's safe before they get on the road?
More meat for the grinder. It costs more money. This is anything for our industry. If it costs the industry more money, we're probably not going to do it. Unless the government mandates like the ELD, possibly the speed regulators, there's all the other things that will ultimately happen. But you're exactly right. We do not want to spend the money to invest in this profession. We want to have mills and turn people out. Yes, sir.
Do new owner operators that come into the industry leasing a used truck, do they even know what they need to do to do a recheck? And like, what's a pre-audit, so when they get audited, they actually pass it, not just refuse and outserve?
So electronic DVIRs give you built-in inspections you do. So if you invest in the right technology, it's not hard to do a proper pre- and post inspection. Most people, we call it pencil. They just do it and they don't actually do the inspections. But the reality is, they are trained, like they're trained in mountain driving and they're trained on night driving by taking a class for 3 weeks. Sometimes the CDL takes, a couple months to get, but in some states it's just 3 weeks. So there is not enough training. There's not an apprenticeship program. The old days, this was a profession. You did not just become a truck driver. You would work as a protege or someone in this space, learning from unionized drivers, unionized mechanics at very, very specific rules. So this is not like
And it's so easy to become a motor carrier. $300 on a Visa gift card, some insurance, and a VIN number that you took off of trucks and junk for years, and the insurance company is crooked. So it costs $300. It's cost $300 for decades,
Yeah.
right? But the analogy I'm trying to make is to become a barber in the state of Tennessee, it's going to cost you $1,100 for your license. You have to go through hours and hours of training. You have to make sure that any debt you spend for school is paid off before you get your license. All those things got to happen to become a barber. So do we care more about a bad haircut or about safety on our highways? That's what the FMCA is today's got to come in and say, let's get real and really raise that to $1,200 to get your authority.
Matt, we need to promote the latter. Your first opinion. We need to up the general liability, and I promise you, a lot of shit will change overnight.
I agree with you, I do. It's
Yeah.
just, we have very powerful lobbyists in this industry, like some of the most powerful lobbyists that have ever existed in the United States that do not want that to happen. And so it is really a question of people volunteering to do more insurance or shippers requiring it.
Yeah.
We can convince shippers at a bigger scale until one shipper is held responsible for a catastrophic accident. This is why brokers exist.
Well,
It's about-
hold on. Amazon has been held responsible all day long, and they just fucking, they do their thing. So, and so I'm saying,
So Amazon followed the FedEx Ground line. I mean, FedEx Ground was used to be roadway packing systems. Roadway decided many years ago to want to make.
but it's impacting their brand, and the consumers are paying attention because of those lawsuits and their brand image, and they require higher insurance, and now their fucking safety is the top priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, videos of this is looking at on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, where there's Amazon packages all over the highway.
Shitty drivers, yeah, third-party drivers, yeah.
With drivers, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I did when I was on the shipper side, I had my dock supervisor go out there and meet the driver and do the inspection unit, especially when you're in the manual from the DDIR, because now I have the writing on it, commission that it was done, and that second set of eyes on the tires, and, the airline brake and the J handles and all that, right? Maybe they were cracked or something like that. But he didn't notice, they did, and I made that happen.
There's like a whole part of the training, right, you're talking about, people need to have like that, somebody training them, even if you're coming in and by yourself, and what it is, here we go. If you are one of those people, to me, go meet another driver at a truck stop, like, people are willing to help people, you'll find the right type of driver out there. I think that will help, I don't think people ask for help like they should, and I don't think there's like there's YouTube videos out there, like we were just watching the one from Minnesota, that's
She's
literally
right.
from the state of
Put on
Ohio.
mask.
do it.
We talk about that in
There's
space all the
definitely
time.
resources out there, but do people take the time to do it? Yeah.
And I think to Matt's point about the Ninth Circuit saying bring brokers into it, brokers have a responsibility to mitigate that claim too. Like, I mean, my brokers, we ask them the driver, when he shows up with his bill of lading, I want to see a copy of the inspection. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that we're kind of not the only guy responsible, but reducing my level of liability.
Because like you said, if the broker's going to like a lawsuit because something happened, I'm bringing my piece of paper, I'm here, all my due diligence that I've done. Yeah, I've done all these things, this is where I'm going on them. And honestly, I think, as a broker, wherever I was getting trained, most of my training was on sales and how to bring down the cost for this load, and how to try to charge for this and that. A lot of it was not about the safety part of it, that kind of is something I picked up along the way. And I think that needs to shift, it needs to be part of it. Whenever you're building a relationship with your carrier, hey, how often do you check your trucks? Hey, and then typing that in notes in your DMS and knowing information about every carrier that you work with, this should be standard part of what lanes do you run? Let's just say it should go hand in hand.
And over the years, we've come to a point where we've only been checking carriers on certain things, like even with FMCSA, we've kind of let the brokers do their own thing, and they're not really regulated nearly as much. But the FMCSA just 2 weeks, maybe a year, 2 weeks ago, has hired somebody that just handles the brokerage part of it, to make sure that they're in line, and that's long.
Well, I think too, like I brought this up actually, the very first broker carriers on it's one of the breakers, right? It's all about what's the cheapest rate, right? Nobody talks about customer service. Nobody talks about safety, right? And that needs to change from the shipper level, right? It doesn't even talk about There's a huge
Maybe a
market.
shipper, broker, carrier, something.
Yeah,
So, I'll mention, we can't close on time.
Good law.
We are moving freight right now at a cost that's below the operational cost of a truck. And so shippers don't understand this, some of them do. Brokers don't understand this, some of them do. But when you run freight at a cost that is beneath the operating cost of the truck, you are earning money that you don't have. And that's when you defer maintenance. You say, I'm not doing this right now. The cost of running a trucking company are very clear. It's fuel, labor, assets, maintenance, tires, and insurance, and things for 5 and 6. That's your spend. And so what do you defer? You defer maintenance. About 10% of your revenue as a trucking company should go to maintenance. That's really how it works. But we don't do that. And I think when shippers start realizing, or if a creative lawyer, you're creative, can understand, Mr. and Mrs. Shipper, you knew you were moving this stuff below the operating cost of a truck company. You probably knew this was dangerous. And once you get one verdict that shows a shipper liable for what that's happened by the motor carrier, then I think you start seeing this shift change over time. It's not here yet. It's not going to be here for a long time. But I have no doubt that will be something that we'll see in the next couple of years.
So we're done with part one. What are your closing thoughts on this?
I mean, do your part, right? No matter if you're a shipper, if you're a broker, if you're a carrier, right, or just a consumer that's out there. Everybody plays a part in safety, and nobody should, turn a blind eye to it, regardless of who you are. I think if everybody takes it seriously, again, thank you to the few that joined us. Unfortunately, this is kind of what people think about safety, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, I think this morning's, you saw Adam Silver here from Molo. He talked about what differentiates you from another broker. One thing that I like to have my guys when they're talking about shippers and differentiates us, we're going to tell them how to protect themselves. Make sure safety is at the top of your list. That's going to protect them, and it's going to build a better relationship with us because they trust us. And we're looking for those kind of things because we're really the intermediary on their behalf. So we want to let them know that we really care about their company and their brand.
Daniel, what are your thoughts?
For me, I really think just having these types of conversations with the broker pairs, so I love the broker pair summit, having these talks with everybody and understanding as a broker what a carrier actually goes through day in, day out, because really, I didn't know, honestly. Like I had my carrier friends I called every day, but then tell me, I'm having to do this and that. I mean, that's how I learned more about safety. And it's instead of like, you learn over time of talking, having the relationships, it's so crucial. So make sure you're all doing that.
Mr. Levin.
I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with everybody. I hope you come to the next session we're going to be doing on this, and I hope you come to my Ask Me Anything at 410. I have a lot more controversial opinions and thoughts, and I hope you can enjoy them. I'm very clear. My father was a railway guy back in 1976. That time is gone. That generation is out of here. We're in a new world, a new normal. The new normal is unsafe equipment that is underinsured. And that is a bill that we will have to pay someday. It's not today, it will be someday. And that someday, God willing, is not some other catastrophic death of a child or some horrible thing that can happen. Because in the world of law, we are all itching for these cases. We don't want them to happen. But when they do, we will find you, we will break you, and you will go bankrupt. And then you can do it again in a couple more months, and we'll do the same dance one more time.
And this afternoon, we're going to get more into safety requirements on shipper, carrier, broker side, protecting the brand's image and reputation, and also class forensics. And that's going to be about 3:10 to 3:55 this afternoon. So thank you guys, I appreciate it.